Good day, this is Sam at the Reloved Guitar Workshop. Reloved guitars, old cast-off guitars found on eBay, usually with really bad actions, often people giving up trying to make them play nicely, and I like to buy them up and do a few simple things and sort them out. And so you can see a couple of them hanging around, waiting to be done. And I have a belief that even a good quality basic budget guitar like a Squier or what's this, Yamaha from the 1980s, in fact that's my sister's old guitar, even budget guitars can sound really great and play really well. They don't have to be £500 to £1,000 worth of guitar, if you take care of some basic things. So this is the Squier Stratocaster Standard, and haven't done anything to it yet, and even in its basic condition sounds lovely. I'm really enjoying playing this guitar. Dirty old strings, and a tremolo, a floating tremolo that's a bit kind of ropey. Well, not ropey actually, it's quite effective. But you can hear little pings on the nut when you play it and use a tremolo. But this is a really nice surprise. The Squier Standard Strat is not something I'd heard of before, and it's got quite a unassuming name. When you hear something called Standard, you sort of think it's a bit average, and actually what I've discovered is this is anything but. A bit of research showed me that it was well respected, this guitar, so I made sure to go and get one, and got this one in a sort of coal black finish and slightly metallic paint. Pretty good condition, one or two little spots where the paint had chipped away, which I've touched up with black paint already. And it's also got the big 70s headstock, which is unusual in my collection because I've managed to avoid having any Strats with that headstock. I don't know why, it's just a bit of a prejudice against it really. If it's something about the 70s I can't quite face up to or deal with. But all round, this is looks and feels like a good piece of kit. And so what we're going to do today is take it apart, clean it up, and I suspect put it back together again without too much worry. But in these setups there is a standard, again, that's that word again, there's a standard amount of things that I'll do to a guitar. Probably take it all apart, clean all the individual components up as good as possible. There's no reason why not to, makes it look a little bit fresher. Take apart everything, make sure there's nothing hanging off, make sure the tuners are clean and all fitting properly and all done up in places they should be done up, and they've got the right sort of tension. They don't feel too bad actually on this one. And then we'll take care of some of the key things, and the foundation of a really good setup that I've learned is having level frets, good condition level frets all the way across your neck. Now it's my experience that where guitars don't have this, and most of them don't have level frets when they come out of a factory, or when they come out of a shop, because it takes for a human being to do this job, and actually I don't think there's any other way. It takes about an hour and a half to do this properly, even when you've done it a number of times. So that's an hour and a half of skilled workmanship that would kind of ruin someone's cheap guitar business model. Also, it's kind of too fiddly and too time consuming probably for most guitars, probably under the £500 mark, maybe under the £1,000 mark, I don't know. But what I do know is you don't rarely see it's been done, and you can tell this by what we'll do shortly, which is we'll take off the neck, we'll straighten it out using the truss rod, and then we'll just check for how level the frets are. And usually we find quite a number of the frets are slightly high in different spots. Now, even while that's the case, this guitar can be nice and playable, and we can have fun playing it, and we could even, you know, with some new strings on, probably go out and gig with that guitar, because it's a nice quality Squier. But what the issue about high frets is they condemn you to a certain playing action. Okay, so if you've got uneven frets on here, you can carry on playing, but what you can't do is have a low and easy action, because the lower you get, that's when the high frets start to come into effect, and what they do is they cause notes to choke or buzz, and sometimes choke off completely, so that you might end up moving your fingers up and down the frets, but actually it ends up playing the same note up here, because the fret is so high that no matter what you play here, it's grounding out on this fret. That's an extreme case, but you've probably all come across that. So choking or buzzing is a sign that you've got, it can be a sign that you've got uneven frets. The good news is once you've taken care of the fret level, and they're all pretty much exactly the same height, then you've got a lot of option on how low you take the playing action, and so that you can set it to what suits you rather than being dictated with a high action, because you have to kind of raise the strings above the inherent problems in the neck. So that's why I always say that the level frets, a straight or a correctly adjusted neck, and the level set of frets is your foundation for a good setup, and everything after that, the setting of the nut action and the setting of the bridge action, kind of comes after that. If you haven't got level frets, or your neck isn't adjusted, it's got too much relief in it, or it's too flat, or it's too bowed, then it doesn't really matter what you try and do with the action here. You'll never get a guitar that plays well, or even stays in tune all the way up and down the fingerboard. So you can tell from this that probably spending more of as much time as anything in the setup on the neck is probably what we're going to end up doing. So we'll take the neck off, we'll do the fret checking, and probably end up doing a fret level, and then once we've leveled the frets, we need to then sand them in a series of progressively smoother sanding steps until we get to a place where we can polish them, and all of that will probably take about an hour and a half. And that's working flat out, that's not with any kind of messing about. So a good solid hour and a half to do that. And then we'll clean up the body, we'll make sure that the electrics are good, take the buttons and whatnot off and make sure they're clean. And quite often people have plastic still caught behind the various volume tone knobs. But we'll clean it all up. We'll decide what we want to do with the tremolo. This didn't come with a tremolo arm, this guitar. It means I can sort of shove one in just for the time being, but it's not the right arm. But you can hear what it does. The question is it reliable tremolo arm? Does it put these things out of tune? I mean, these are basic tuners here, they're not locking tuners or anything. So the general consensus is if you want a guitar that stays in tune, yes, you need to take care of your basic neck. You need to make sure that's the frets are level and the neck is the right profile. But also, for a guitar to stay in tune, if you have a tremolo on it, you need the nut to be really correctly, the slots to be correctly cut, so that the strings, when you bend them in the tremolo, don't get caught up and snagged and go out of tune. So there's a number of factors there. It may be that we lock this one down and leave it as a non-tremolo, or it might be we leave it, providing it's stable, we might leave it so that you can play it with your wrist. It's quite a nice little feel. It doesn't. When I first saw this guitar, I thought the pivoting floating bridge, I thought it might really interfere with making playing palm muted notes. You can do if you want to, but you have to push back a bit. So just generally, when you palm mute it, it tends to be right over the pivot point. So it's not a bad guitar. So you could leave it floating and get away with playing most of what you'd want to play without getting the tremolo kicked off. But you could give it a punch when you want to. When I do that, I notice there's a definite pinging of strings catching as they go over either the nut or into the string trees. We need to kind of lubricate them a bit, and also make sure these slots are right. So we're 10 minutes into it already, just by describing bits and pieces. All round nice. Once we've made sure the basic guitar is in good shape, and we've sorted the neck, then what we'll do is we'll restring it with new strings, and then once we've done that, we start setting the action. And once we've set the action and we're happy with that, the last step really is intonating each string using the individual adjusters, the bridge saddles down here, and that's the complete thing. And really, you're probably looking at about 2.5 to 3 hours, which will film the whole thing, because that's what we do to I suppose to give you a clear idea of what we've done, but also hopefully give you confidence that we do what we say. That's the important bit about Reloved guitars. But also, well, as I go through it, I'll be talking non-stop, because even though I do this every time, and I'm repeating myself for every guitar, the purpose of this is, if you've bought this guitar, I'd like you to feel comfortable doing some of this yourself if you're inclined to do it, so that you understand how to do it. So for that purpose, I'll talk through every step as if I've never explained it before. Hopefully it will make sense. Okay, so I'm going to put a hold on this and clear the desk, and back in a second. Right, Squier Stratocaster Standard series, here we go. Going to strip it down, clean it up, see what happens. So for this, I'm going to start by taking off the strings. Some people say don't cut the strings until you've slacked off the tension, because the sudden shock of the neck being released from tension will damage it. Other people say that's nonsense. These necks are incredibly strong, flexible pieces of wood, and they're designed for many years of being under huge strain. So I take the tension off, actually purely for a safety point of view, because these things do kind of twang quite a bit when you cut them. So rather than have the strings flying around, I tend to at least take some of the tension off. But once that's done, it's chop, 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 and rip the whole lot off. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. So we'll chuck these strings away. We've got a few sets, a 3-pack of Ernie Ball Super Slinky. I put those on. They're not actually my preferred choice of string, but the reason I put them on is because people have different tastes, and the Ernie Ball Super Slinky strings are sort of nice, good quality, general. See, catch hold of that. Good quality general purpose string. And if somebody buys this guitar, or if you bought this guitar and you want to change the string, I'm assuming that you'll put your own preference of strings on. But personally, on a guitar that I'd keep for myself, I would probably put on Elixir strings, although they're way more expensive, probably 3 times at least, close to three times the price of these Ernie Balls. But they are really good. If you've used them, you'll know they last a hell of a long time, and they sound great for a lot longer. So we're fiddling around nearly here, getting these strings out. It's always a difficulty with Fender through body strings, is they can be quite annoying to get out through the string holes at the back there. Probably would be easier for me, since I'm taking it all apart anyway. It'd be easier to just take that off and avoid that problem altogether, but I didn't. So first thing to do is chuck these away somewhere in my shed dustbin. Big bag of stuff hanging on the outside. Okay, so I'm literally going to take everything off this guitar, and I'm going to do it in any particular sequence. No, what I don't have is a container for all the bits of this guitar. I've got a few containers containing bits of other guitars. So I don't want to have anything, I don't want to leave things floating about, so I will create the space. I'll put those, where shall I put those? I'll just leave those loose in there. Right. One of the things I have as well is Grandad glasses. These are like high-powered reading glasses. Don't need them all the time because these are standard varifocally things, but sometimes it's really good to get up, see what you're doing up close, particularly when you're working on frets. Okay, so I'm going to take the tuners off in this case. Am I going to take the tuners off? Do we need to? They're all in pretty good condition actually. I'll show you from this side. There's nothing loose, no problem. I'm not going to take them out because there is nothing about them that needs altering. They just need cleaning, so I'll leave those on. I will take the string trees off. If I can find where I put my screwdriver for doing that. This is where you hear a lot of rattling, but you won't see what I'm rattling around. Trying to find my all-purpose screwdriver, which is here. Yeah, I'll take the string trees off so that I can just clean all around them a bit easier. And the string trees are kept at the correct height by the front one having a higher little spacer, you see there, and that keeps the string tree at its correct height. And the rear one is slightly lower, and that's because it doesn't have to cope with such the strings aren't as high by the time they reach that second one. So taller nearer the front, shorter nearer the back, and we'll just remember that. Okay, those are lovely dust which we can wipe off anyway. I'm going to separate the neck and the body first. So to do this I will chuck it over upside down, and there's nothing to worry about taking necks off guitars, except, having said nothing, but there is one thing to watch out for. Two things. One is to make sure you get the best fitting screwdriver bit that will do this job. You want something that fits really snug. In fact, both of these do the job. I'll take the cleanest one of the two. Because of all the many things on your guitar, you don't want to screw the slots on these, because if you do, you'll be having to buy another plate or another set of 4 of these. I don't think you can find them individually. And the truth is, once they've been bolted into a neck, you really don't want to get new ones anyway, because the hole in the neck will fit this particular screw. So we're going to use a power driver with a lot of pressure so we don't skip, just to release the pressure on each one of them. And I'm not pulling each one all the way out, I'm just bringing them up one by one a little bit, and then further out. Make sure you've got a handle on your neck so it doesn't fall off onto the floor. Now the other thing you need to watch out for when you do this is be very careful when you take the body away from the neck at this point, because you may well find that there is a shim under here, which is a little insert. It could be made of anything. It could be wood, it could be plastic, it might be a piece of sandpaper or something. But it might be a little piece called a shim that's under here to make sure that the neck sits at the ideal angle. So we'll keep an eye out as we lift this off, which isn't coming off yet. As we lift it off, we'll be looking out to see if there's any shims, and more importantly where that shim was positioned, because that makes a real big difference. If the shim's near the back, it will produce a big angle in one direction or another. Right, that's fine, no shims under there, so there's my 2 pieces. Let's screw those. Actually, we'll take them right out for now. We want to clean the body without that on. Okay, so into our box of parts. The only slight blemish on this guitar actually is a tiny bit of belt buckle scratching on the back of the plate, but otherwise nice square plate. Again, good quality neck. Somebody's, I think, put some graphite or something on the nut slots before, but they are a bit sticky, and I might just use some nut files to widen those nuts. But we'll see when we put strings on. Okay, so we'll put the body off to one side for a minute, and we'll come back to that we'll deal with the neck first. Put the body down there safely. And the first thing I want to do to this neck is just to give it an overall clean. I've got some warm soapy water and a toothbrush. Some people swear by using naphtha on a maple neck, and naphtha is a chemical which is pretty much, I don't know if it's all that Ronson lighter fuel is, but that's what people use, and it's a good solvent basically, and it cuts through grease without doing any kind of damage to maple. But if in doubt, and if you're stuck without anything, revert to water and a little bit of soap, only a tiny bit. I mean, that can't do any scratching. It isn't going to dirty the neck any more than it already is. It's going to lift dirt off, particularly finger grease, and within a few seconds you can have a much nicer, cleaner, fresher neck than you had before. And I don't know about you, but when I get a new guitar or inherit a guitar from someone else, there's something nice about taking away their DNA off the fingerboard, which makes me feel a bit better. Not that I hate everybody in the world or anything, but something about other people's finger grease is a little bit weird. I don't know. So a good old kind of rub down. You don't want to leave too much water on there for too long, but in short doses. There's nothing wrong with water on maple necks. I guess it's wood after all. And wood is mostly what? Yes, that's right, water. So this neck has cleaned up quite nicely just with this, so I wouldn't need to use any solvents or anything. So just as a start of a 10. Nothing I can see that hasn't come off or cleaned up as a result of using water. Something stuck to the side of that, I'm not sure what. So I can see there's a bit more to do just on this side. I don't know if you can see, but sort of one side of it's shiny and clean, and the far edge, or the close edge to me now, the nearer edge, is still got a little bit of finger goo. So again, not easy to see, but I'll go all the way down this side now and just make sure we get rid of that. Doing the nut as well, just to get rid of all whatever was in there before, because I'll start from scratch when treating that nut. If you're doing a rosewood neck, or in fact in a maple, you can use a very, very, very high grit, very, very fine sandpaper to take off, or to clean the neck, to clean the fingerboard I should say, and that's obviously being slightly abrasive. That will take off really ground in dirt, but you want to be very careful you don't end up with too high a grit or anything like that, because you don't want to be scratching a nice silk finished fingerboard. Sometimes with rosewood that's less of a worry, because it's quite a rough natural finish anyway. You don't often find shiny rosewood fingerboards, but you often do. It's very often you get a shiny finish with maple. Okay, well, to me that looks considerably cleaner, fresher than it was before. Again, you know, a number of things you could use. House polish here if you really wanted to. Sometimes I've got it out here, but when I have lost it, have I lost it, or has it fallen down somewhere? Just looking for the Mr. Sheen. It might have taken a walk out of the shed back to the house, which is probably what's happened. So in the absence of that, so I go and get it between the shoots, between seams. I'll just give this a good clean down with this now slightly damp rag. But again, there's not much real old dirt on this thing. A little bit down the sides, but fairly good condition all round. And these tuners don't have anything on them. They're not Squier branded or Fender branded, but thankfully they're considerably better than the horrible things that come. Let me find some to show you. Horrible tuners that come with the Affinity Affinity Telecaster. Actually, that thing there. These are just my temporary holders for the shed, but I don't know if you can see. But that thing there is it's an Squier Affinity Telecaster, and it comes with the cheapest form of tuner that you can get. And those tuners are the same as the ones you get on an basic Encore guitar. So by comparison, it's a good one. It's a dented one. So here's your Affinity or Bullet Strat tuner, or Encore tuner. They're all from the same factory, I suppose. But it's horrible. I mean, first of all, it's rattly. Secondly, it's covered by this little thin pressed metal case. Horrible. And then inside you've got this incredibly basic tuning machine, which is held on in a pressed clamp or a grip. And both, you can see here, both the tuner gear, the two sides of the tuner gear are really both loose. It does the job, and it's not the biggest contributory factor to tuning stability, but it's not nice. It's a bit of a grotty thing. So these on a Strat seem to be much more direct. I can feel already they're nice, they're firm and positive. By comparison, I'm a big fan of the Wilkinson Easy Lock tuner, which is, I think, better than both of those put together. And the Easy Lock tuner is a really good quality. Catch the little screw. A really good quality little oval machine head, oval tuning head or knob. But what's significant about it is it has two holes in the post instead of just the one, and it allows you to push a string through, wind it round to 45 degrees, push it through the other way, 90 degrees, push it through the other way, and then pull, and that's locked, and then you just tune to tighten up. So a really clever gripping mechanism on there, which I really appreciate on guitars. So I'm intending to put these onto that Affinity Telecaster over there, because it's a nice guitar otherwise, spoiled by such horrible cheap Encore style tuners. So a pot of these babies, a set of these, is about £20, but I think it's a really good investment. Now on this Strat, I don't think it's necessary. It might be a slight luxury to have them, but I'm not going to put them on here. I don't think we'll have any problems playing it beforehand. It seemed pretty good tuners. So there's my neck, nice and clean. Got most of the goo off. I can see it shining. Now that's the first cosmetic job done, and I'm going to put my water and toothbrush out of the way. And we can go straight on into the next task, which is to check the frets to make sure they're level, and if they're not, then we level them. So we look at the condition of the frets first, and we just have a you can do it by taking a sight down the fretboard. Sometimes you can see scratches that go down the fretboard if you do that, and you just kind of feel them and look at them in the light, and you can see individual wear where each string passes over the frets. Sometimes in an old guitar that will be very pronounced, because years of playing on all the open chords will cause grooves to wear into these. So in this case there's not that much wear. There is a bit, I can see a few ruts, so it's a few years since these frets have been played, or they've been played for a few years, probably a couple of years. Whether they've been treated or not before is probably a job for the Grandad specs. And when we look up close, you can sort of start to see, are these frets by and large a nice domed shape, or they tend to be flattened off? If they tend to be flattened off, it's usually a good bet that they've been treated or done sometime in the past, because new frets tend, not always, but tend to have a nice round domed profile, but I can see quite a bit of surface flattening on here and some scratching as well actually, so I think these have been treated by somebody in the past, but not necessarily polished up brilliantly. So step one now, fret leveling. Step one of fret leveling is to make sure the neck is straight, and that really is a case of looking down the neck and seeing if there's any bend either direction in the neck. So is it arched like that when we look down it? Is it flat, or is it is it bowed? Is it flat, or is it arched? And in this case, looking down the neck, this neck is just slightly arched, tiny bit arched. It means we could do a tiny adjustment, and to do that we adjust the Allen key in order to adjust the truss rod. And this is where I go into kind of hysterics, because I seem to increasingly never get the right Allen key. So it's a bit of a, I mean, you could read the specs and find exactly which one it is, but I'm going to go on trial and error for the time being. I've got a few different Allen keys floating about in here. It's definitely not a big one like that. That's too small. Too big, too small. So we want something in between. And typically, I'm not sure we can find it. A close look. It's actually quite large, but it's not that large. Is it? Oh no, I lie. It is that large. So it's a fairly standard one that I use. There you go. Now, I completely forget this every single time. In fact, I'm going to write it down here. So while you're here, I'm going to, at the risk of getting lots of interference on my recording, I'm going to go off airplane mode, bip, 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 connect to the internet, and I'm going to go Strat truss rod adjustment. Strat truss rod adjustment. And somewhere in the, usually in the first few results in Google, there's a fairly simple diagram that tells you which is which, and I'm not even sure if it's the, I'm not sure how clear the Fender instruction on their own website is. So it tells you all in words, no pictures. Okay. Sight down the edge of the fingerboard, yeah. If the neck is too concave, action too high, turn the nut clockwise to remove excess relief. Too concave, action is too high. What? Okay, it's not. It's too convex, so we turn the cloth counterclockwise. Okay, now that's what a counterclockwise, so we remember this. I'm going to write it down. Counterclockwise. Let's find the pen. Let's find something to write on. Okay, so we're going from that down to that, counterclockwise from this end, and from that upwards to there, clockwise. There you go. That'll teach me for not having written it down before. So, what did I say? It's slightly proud, and we want to take some out, so we go counterclockwise, which is this way. Right, and let me switch this back to airplane mode. Okay, so this is only a tiny amount, so I'm just literally going to put it in and make a very, very small adjustment. It's quite stiff. Every guitar has its own feel to its truss rod, and some feel stiffer than others, and some when you adjust them, well, they seem to spin forever. Don't seem to bite. I had a guitar last weekend that was like that. It was a bit annoying in a way, because it was a nice guitar, but once we'd set it up, I couldn't get any more truss rod adjustment out of it, which was a shame. Now this one is still a tiny bit proud, so I'm going to do a little bit more. That was about 1/8 of a turn, I suppose, maybe even less. So it's very, very small adjustments, and allowing it a little bit of time, hopefully, to register with it, because it's bending wood. I think we're getting there. You don't need to rush with this. You don't want to rush, and if it doesn't seem to be making any difference, then stop and reconsider. And if you think you've got your instructions wrong, go backwards, relook at your information. Now this, I can see that it's now leveled it out. It's terribly, terribly small amounts of tiny amounts, but that small amount of adjustment has put this now into a state that I'm happy to begin work on. And I can feel it's quite a solid bite on that truss rod, so we shouldn't have any problem adjusting it later on, for which I'll keep that out. Okay, so that number one most important step before you start taking a file or anything to lower your frets, make sure the neck is flat, and that's what we just did. You don't want it flat when you're playing, but you want it flat when you're making fret level checks. So there's a next stage which is really boring, but it's absolutely crucial. There's no chance on earth that I'm going to check these frets and they're all going to be precisely level, right? So that never happens. I've never found it yet. Given that's the case, we are going to do some adjustment, some modification to the frets. It's going to have to. Then we're going to need to mask off the fretboard. This is a lovely fretboard. It's got a really nice grain pattern to it. The last thing we want to do is ruin this with file marks. So, unfortunately, this is going to take time and patience for us to create a safely masked off fretboard. We want to mask off the wooden parts, of the maple fretboard. And so to do that, I'm going to need a blade and a kind of surface to work on. I just used an old piece of tongue and groove actually, and take off some of that stuff I did the other day, which is probably not got stickiness anymore. We'll start from scratch. And you just need good old-fashioned masking tape for this. Nothing. Don't buy expensive painter's tape or anything. Just use good old-fashioned masking tape, and you're going to need quite a bit. So a good old plank like this, lay it out, and to do it, you're going to need, first of all, you can use it at full thickness for these wide frets. But then, as you get those bits done, the frets get narrower, and you're going to need to cut your tape in half widths, and then as the frets get even narrower, you're going to need to cut thirds of the tape, or standard size tape like this. Okay, so I'm going to just go with, first of all, a set of standard widths, and I'll start from the wider end. Okay, so I will cut the video in a minute because you don't have to sit through all of this. But the idea is that we go with masking tape. It needs to be dry, make sure the fingerboard's dry and not oily. And then we just place it round and bend it round. And we place a second one and make it butt right up to the fret. Okay, we don't want it over the fret, we don't want it running up the side of the fret, or we don't want a gap. If you leave a gap, your fingerboard will get ruined, and on a maple fingerboard like this, that will show up really quickly. So it's critical you take the time to do this right. But again, if you take the time, you can't go wrong. There's no rocket science required. It's just, what's the word? Patience. So we just keep on going down the fretboard, and I'll stop in a minute, but a couple more points I want to make. Keep going down the fretboard, putting the tape on, winding it around the back until we have to start cutting the tape in half because it's too wide for the frets, which will come up in a minute. And a piece of advice here is, in any of the steps that we do next, if you find the tape comes off or you notice a gap that isn't isn't completely covered, or is a little, you know, the gap showing through between the fret and the last piece of tape, so you can see wood through it, stop and take the time to find the tape again, cut some more strips and cover it up, because although you want to get on, taking the time then will save you grief later on, because there'd be nothing worse than doing all this lovely hard work for an hour and a half and then getting to the end of it and discovering that you've got lovely shiny frets, all nice and levelled, but you've just gone and ruined your beautiful maple fingerboard, and so that nobody will want to buy this guitar off you or play it even, because you made it look so horrible. So always ensure that the fingerboard is covered. If it lifts up while you're doing part of the job, some way down the line, stop what you're doing, get the tape out and go the extra mile and cover it up again. Right? Never leave a bit showing. Towards the end of this process we'll probably use a Dremel to polish the frets, the final polish on the frets. If you to do that will potentially ruin your fingerboard very quickly if there's a gap showing through. If it's covered in masking tape, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and catch up with you in a minute. Okay, back again. Masked up, ready to go. Everything is covered, frets visible, but otherwise fingerboard nicely protected. Okay, so what do we know? We know we've got a straight neck, we've adjusted that, we've got the fingerboard covered up, and we're ready to go. And this is where we do the checking with the fret checking, or checking to see if the frets are level, I should say. So we need a tool, which is either, you can use one of two things: the high-tech version, which is a fret leveling tool which you pay good money for, or you can use a credit card, or this isn't a credit card but it's the right shape. So it doesn't have to be high-tech, but the purpose of this is you need a piece of material with square edges, and what you're going to do is you're going to place that metal edge across 3 frets, and you're going to try to rock it. And if you can rock it, see if you can see this. You probably can't see it, it's such a small movement, but if you can rock it side to side, and more importantly, I'll do it by the mic, if you can rock it, you'll hear a click and feel a click. That tells you that the middle fret of your 3 is higher than the other sides. It must be, because it's, I guess it, imagine it like that, okay, and it's doing this. So we have permanent marker pen standing by, we have a fret rocker tool, or you have your credit card. And your credit card's cool because it comes with a long side and a short side, and I would recommend, if you were going to use an old credit card for this job, I would recommend you also cut a side across like that to give you your, actually about there, to give you your shortest side, which needs to correspond with that edge there. So about, I say 2/3 of the width, just so cut a bit off there. Armed with that, you'll have the same functionality as this. So what you do is you do the rocking, and when you find a high fret, you mark where that fret is high. Sometimes it's not all the way across. In this case, right at the far edge, here, right down at the far edge, it's not actually high. It starts rocking about a centimetre in and then all the way across to the far end. So I know that, or I can mark it first of all on the fret itself. It's most of the fret. Good. You need a good squidgy wet marker for this, but it's got to be permanent. And then once you've done that, mark on the mark onto the masking tape next to it. The reason you're going to do that is because when you level this fret using a sandpaper or a fret leveling file, you will cut off that black permanent marker, and the marking of the paper as well helps you to remember where it was high, because you'll need to do something else, and for that you'll need to know where it was high, even though the first action will be taking all the marker pen off. Long-winded. So you just carry on onto the next fret, do the same job. Nothing. Next one. Straight away. Almost all the way across that one. So you take the time, mark it up thoroughly. There's no super fast way of doing this. Excuse me. Mark it up thoroughly and then mark the masking tape. Move to the next one. That was me. Nothing on that one. Then move to the next one. Now this is where I'm going to change sides because the threads are coming closer together. Now from about halfway across, that one clicks for about a centimetre. So just mark that up if that's all it does. Mark up the place where it does it. Mark it on the paper next to it. And keep on going. I'll move the camera a bit here. Quite often, and I haven't worked out the explanation for this, there is a relationship. Quite often you'll find this happens, which I'm marking up now, is you will see a high spot there, only in the middle, and then it will appear that on the next fret up you've got high frets where that isn't high. So there's clearly a relationship between the two of those things. It's a bit of a puzzle or a riddle to try and work out, is that one low and is that one really high? Or is that one really high all the way across, but that one's especially high? Once you've taken that one down, naturally that will be high all the way. Or is it really just that that's high at either end? You're a better person than me if you can work that out. Fortunately, in my experience, is you don't have to work it out to do this job. You just plod on. That's okay. Next one's okay. Next one's okay. That's unusual. Oh, here we go. So from about a centimetre in, so you can see that even though that was a nice playing guitar before I took the neck off, but it sounded nice, and from where I was standing it felt nice to play. You can see that it's clearly still got some problems, but those problems weren't showing up because the action was high enough. I took a photograph of the action earlier on, and in the action at the 20th fret, I think it was roughly about there, was just about 2.5 millimeters, which is not bad. It's quite, it's playable, but it was clear that if you want any lower playing action on this guitar, we're going to have to sort these high frets out, because until we do, we don't have the option to take them any lower. What you'd find is you'd have buzzing strings and strangled choked frets, choked notes on certain sets of frets. Okay, just nearly missed one out there. Okay, now I'm going to go down. Am I down size yet? No, not yet. Almost at that point now where the straight edge is too long, but that's a nice high fret there. and not all the way, so from just over halfway back down. So not too many on this. Quite often we see a lot more. Now I think I need to go down a size, and I'm on my last sized surface, and this will work now from here through to the end. A little bit of rocking there, and a little bit at this far end. You hear my neighbours yelling, by the way. Do rather a lot of that. Okay, halfway. So again, you can see this takes a long time, and you have to ask yourself when you buy a second-hand guitar or even a new one in a shop or from an online retailer, you ask yourself, who's done this work? Because the idea that there's some manufacturing process, if you think about the mechanics of how this works, the idea that there's a manufacturing process that will press these metal pieces of bent metal wire, press them into the slots that are waiting to receive them. The idea that there's a technique that will do that, and they will all stop at exactly the same height, given that they're pressing into pliable wood, there's glue in there. You can see straight away that no manufacturing process is going to leave all of these surfaces of these frets at exactly the same kind of microscopic measurement, same height precisely. Now if that's the case, then you can start to see that every guitar that comes out of any factory is going to have these problems. And then the question becomes, okay, so did some person in the shop, can you imagine some person in the shop, you went down into the town centre to the local music shop, and you ask yourself, did these guys sit down on a bench, or put this guitar on a bench? Don't have to take the neck off, by the way, but did they put the guitar on the bench and spend an hour and a half on every single guitar in that shop doing this? You know damn well the answer is no. And if they didn't, who did? Because you came in and bought it, and you thought it sounded nice, and you went home and played it, and went out and played in your band. So nobody did it. And the guitar you just bought from someone else, it didn't get done in the factory their guitar came from, didn't get done in the shop, and they probably didn't do it. So the truth is nobody's done it. And there you have a map of uneven frets on a very nice, not cheap, Squier guitar. Together these conspire to stop you having the action as low as you might like to, or as low as would be comfortable, and actually as low as a beginner might need to keep them being willing to play the guitar. Because a high action, as you know from when you started, a high action can be one of the things that puts you off. The more those of you who want to persevere tend to get rid of their first guitar that they can't live with, and then get another one, and finally end up spending quite a bit more money and getting one that has an action that you like. But the point is that a lot of people don't, and they give up. But the other point, of course, is that you don't have to do that. As long as you sort this out, you don't have to go looking for another guitar. This guitar we're doing today will play beautifully after this. The action will be so low, as the customers who bought Reloved guitars have already said, amazing action, because we've taken the time to do this piece of work, right? And that's the secret to it. So, forgive the background, so that's fine, it's normal life. So the next bit, we are now going to make a decision And the next part of the process can go one of two ways. But to start with, we'll say one thing. To level these frets, there is no way you're going to do anything other than scrape away metal. That's the only way of leveling these frets. There is a school of thought that suggests that you get a hammer, it goes down, go around and gently tap in these things. I've never done it and I'm not going to do it. And the reason for that is A, it's very imprecise. There's quite a few B's, C's and D's, but A, it's very imprecise. B, these frets are glued in and they're bedded into a piece of wood, and that glue's set, and the fret is sitting hopefully very tightly in a little slot filled with glue. If I come along now and bash this, right, it's more than likely what's going to happen is it's going to compress the wood, it's going to break the glue seal, and if anything, it's going to make this fret more likely to come out in the future. And once I've done it, I'm still going to have no clear idea whether or not that's at the height I want it. The only way I'm going to tell is by testing it again. Right? I don't think it works. I'm not going to do it. So the one way to make sure that it is level is to now take material off the top of these frets. And that's the approach we're going to take. We're going to do it that one of two ways. Either we use a piece of sandpaper, and this is 320 grit. It's a really cheap brand. I don't know why I got this, but it's totally unsatisfactory, but I can use it for this. 320 grit sandpaper and a block, which is either, could be anything, a rubber, pencil eraser, could be a 9-volt battery, anything square you've got will work. And so you do this job. To do this job, you put this sandpaper around your rubber or your square edge, pardon me, and we're going to work away at this until we've taken off enough and we check the problem's gone. And this sandpaper is more than enough, more than abrasive enough to take down the small amounts of metal that we're going to need to do. Okay, so amazingly, that's your low-tech way. You can do this job. All you have to be is careful. Don't go rubbing at it for hours and then check, because you'll take too much away. You take a little bit away, then you check. And after you do it a few times, you'll know how much pressure to use and how many times you'll need to do it. But if you go slowly, you can never make a mess or a mistake. Another way you could do it, several other ways, but I've got one to show you, is using a fret leveling file, which is a very flat file designed to level frets in one go. So this I would use the whole length of the fretboard. Now the problem with that is it would mean that we'll would take off material off all of these frets, including the ones, probably take some material off, including the ones that don't need leveling. That would be fine, because it would, in taking some down, it would take the same level on all of them, because it's so flat. We would take a bit off everything, more off the high spots, but a little bit off everything, and we'd be left with a really nice level fretboard. I tend to use this when there's clear damage on the lower frets, and there are lots of frets here that need doing. Okay, and for me, this is about this borderline. It'd probably take about as long to use this and do it as it will take to use that. The downside of using this is that once we've taken the material off the top, we then have a job to reshape the tops or the sides of all of the frets, and if we use this, we have to then reprofile every single fret. If we do just that one, we only have to reprofile the frets we've worked on, because these are still pretty much in good shape. And by profile I mean the way they look end on like this. They need to be little smooth, little arched profile. So it swings and roundabouts. Quicker to do that, but longer to reprofile every fret afterwards. Longer to do that, but quicker to reprofile because there aren't so many to do. I usually do that. This time I'm going to change, have it of a lifetime and do it the old-fashioned low-tech way. Partly because I want you to see you don't have to have clever tools to do this. So I'm going to bring the camera right down low, as far as my weird sets of wires will allow me to go. Alright, so I'm going to start on my first one, and I'm just going to grind away a little bit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scrapes on this sandpaper across the top of that fret. And then go straight to checking it again. Now that was quite a big, quite a high fret, so this is going to take a bit of working on. But again, you can see it's taking material off, and it's quite a bit we've got to take off, but we don't have to go at it too hard. It's just progressive strokes with the sandpaper will eventually do it. You might not do it as quick as you'd like, but it will eventually get there. And if when you do, or if you need to, you can change the move the sandpaper around to get a fresh bit. Just rotate it around a little bit, fold it back in, give yourself a fresh surface. So I'm just working the top of this fret with strokes with the sandpaper, and you can see you might hopefully be able to see that it's taking metal off. So even if you don't think it's doing it, have patience, because it is doing it. You have to have faith. Physics tells you it's doing it. Okay, and just do it groups of 4 or 6 and check again. And it's gone on that side, on the far side, but it's still clicking in the middle and on the side nearest to me. So you just keep going, take a few more thousandths, and lo and behold, eventually you'll get there. When you do, satisfying part about it is you'll know that you've got there without ever running the risk of taking too much off. There's something that's like a life before computers. It's such a slow pace. You're never going to mess up with this technique. And that's what's nice about it. It means you can do it tomorrow because you don't have to have a clever set of tools. Credit card, a block and a piece of sandpaper. And it's slow enough to be forgiving. So a few more scrapes and I think we'll be almost there. This first one was particularly high, I have to say, so not surprising it took longer, as long as it did. So halfway it's pretty much done. Got a few more microns to come off this side nearest me. So put a bit more pressure on there, and that's it. That's it. So a bit of work, minute or two, we've done that one, and that was particularly high. So now we move on to the next one. If we need to rotate, good idea to rotate your sandpaper a bit, so you've got to start with a fresh piece. Away we go. And again, this one was nice and all the way across needs to go, so quite a simple action, just scraping away across the top there. 4 or 5, check it. Still hear it. Again, a few swipes, knowing that even if you did 1 or 2 too many, you're never gonna go so badly wrong too quickly with this method. It's not the same can be said for that. That can take off too much too quickly if you're inexperienced with it or you're too heavy-handed. But this is definitely an old-fashioned method, safe, kind of safe as a result. So we do all of these in this way, and we check as we go. And one of the things we'll do when we get to the end is we won't assume that the neck is perfect when we've done each one of these, because we're dealing with them all individually, right, as individual frets. We're not thinking about their relationship particularly to each other, we're just making sure we've done one and then move on to the next one. So what we do when we've finished everything is go back and check the whole neck again from scratch, because leveling one of these will create or show up potential other problems somewhere else. It doesn't often happen, but it can do. So you need to assume when you finish this that the whole neck needs a second checking, and if you do that you won't get caught out by rushing forward in the process when in fact you've still got a problem that needs sorting out. We're almost there, a couple more scrapes in the middle there. So just as its slowness can be its downside, but it can also be very much its upside, because you can't make a mistake or go wrong. What's also good is this sandpaper that leaves less scratches, fewer scratches, and much milder scratches than this fret file, beginning to learn that the hard way round. So polishing these will be a much easier job than it often is polishing ones that you've used the fret file for, fret leveling file I should say. So many words to remember. Okay, so we move on to the next one. This is just a small patch, again 3 or 4 little swipes and check. Great, still feel it, clicking, and back over it. I'm trying to keep it in that spot, because if our checking told us that's where the problem was, we don't need to go too much either side of it, we'll just be creating more problems somewhere else. Okay, done. Now, remember I said that this one sometimes has a relationship to that one. Let's see if anything's changed there. No, we've still got the rocking at the sides, not in the middle. So we'll do them one by one. Start with the sides. So you can see that once you get the hang of this, and you know what kind of pressure to apply and how many strokes to make to get the job done, you can actually pick up speed on this quite nicely. It's not quite as Stone Age as it starts out looking. I'm turning the sandpaper around every now and then, just a little bit. Pretty much there. To the next bit. Still clicking. So I had to stop sticking my tongue out while I'm doing this. Not that you can see that, I hope. Okay, a little bit on the end still. So I'm about, in terms of number of frets, I'm about 1/3 of the way up the fingerboard. And again, you know, as you do this, or as you watch this being done, you could do this quicker with a more expensive tool. There are some very nice fret files you can buy from a place called Stumac, which is at Luthier's Supplies shop, and that would speed the thing up for you. But the question here is that, look how much time it's taking to do this properly. You know, and remembering that nobody is doing this, nobody in that manufacturing cycle. I think the only place you'd probably find this being done is in the custom shop, or you'd hope it was being done in the custom shop. You know, where you're paying a couple of £1,000 to have a guitar built to perfection for you by Fender or Gibson or somebody. For that sort of money, you absolutely would not be expecting to find there being high frets anywhere on a neck that came on one of those guitars. However, I don't know, because I haven't checked the neck of one of those guitars recently. In fact, I had my brother's custom shop Telecaster through here a few weeks ago, and I think there were one or two uneven frets. I don't remember how thoroughly I checked it, because I wasn't going to do any fret leveling, but I think there were one or two uneven frets, even on a custom shop. So, you know, every neck has got this problem, and this is the work that you could do if you wanted to make sure that your guitar, whether it's a mid-range or entry-level Gibson, nice basic made in Mexico Fender Strat, you name it, you could do this work to make your guitar play. And the most satisfying part is doing this work to make your cheap guitar play really well, your budget guitar, because that's the real payoff. And that's the exciting bit that I found in doing this, is that you can take an Encore Strat copy, which is hated by pretty much everyone in the guitar world, and actually make it play really, really well. In fact, make it handle a lot better than guitars 5, 6, 7 times its price, because if you do this, you'll make it play well. There's no two ways about it. So I'm a few little scrapes away now from finishing this part of it, but as I said, this takes time, and if you're just thinking about getting to the end, you'll hurry things, you'll rush, and you'll cut corners. And of all things you don't want to be cutting corners on, it's this work, because this is the foundation of your guitar and how it will play, and it'd be stupid to cut a corner on it. When you finally get to the end of this and do the polishing and unveil your new leveled frets, meaning you have a nice new action that you can dial in on your guitar that you never had before, makes it play like butter, or whatever people say, then you'll realise why the effort here was worth it. So I suggest that, as always, if you're a kind of impatient person, don't get started on this. Go and pay some money to get someone else to do it. But if you do it, then when it comes to the boring bits like this, put on your favourite radio or whatever, music in the background, and buckle up for the ride, because you're going to need to just take as long as it takes without rushing. And that's the main thing. Don't rush it, don't cut corners. I keep myself interested by narrating my way through it. You might do it by listening to your favourite DVDs or something, or having a friend over to talk to. So can you imagine how much guitars would cost if the factory did this work? That's the other issue, of course. The reason the factories don't do this work is that the guitars would have to cost a considerable amount more than they currently do. So your £80 Fender Bullet Strat that you buy out of Thomann online or something like that, really bargain cheap price, you'd never be able to get that price if somebody had to do this work to it. And they don't do it because they can get away with it, because most people don't know why it is that the guitar plays as badly or as difficult as it does, and you just think, oh well, that's my fault. And that's the worst bit, when the beginner learner thinks it's their fault. But it's true. I've seen a lot of people who think their inability to play well or get on with a guitar is their own fault, when often it has to do with the piece of crap they're trying to learn on, which has a an inch high action at the nut the 12th fret, or the intonation is so wrong that it never plays a chord in tune, and as a result everything sounds awful. You never sound like your heroes that you admire and want to emulate, and you just think, well, it's not for me, I can't do it. Well, it's not. It's the guitar. It's so badly set up, you don't have a chance from the outset. And that, in a way, if there's a crusade in all of this, that's the bit that gets me going. It's not, why make a guitar so badly, set a guitar up so badly that it puts off newcomers? It seems so stupid to me. Well, we know why. You're seeing why, because it takes an hour and a half at least of hard work to make it better. But as I say time and time again, the good news is I'm doing it, and the good news is if I can do it with low-tech tools, so can you. You need time, patience, a bit of common sense, and build up the experience to do things in the right order. And once you have that, you're away. Okay, so we're nearly at the end. I'm just going to get ready to do the last few. Get me some clean. I've done all this on one piece of sandpaper, by the way, so it's not exactly hugely expensive or anything. I mean, it's low tech and low cost, which is good. The fret rocker that I'm using only cost about £10, £10 or £12 and I bought it because I suppose it wasn't that much, and I wanted something that would last me several months of doing this. As I learned more and more about it, thanks to some really good YouTube videos, I did learn fairly quickly that a credit card would work, and that the low-tech way is just as good if you don't want to spend money on it, or just want to do it once in a while to your own guitars. As with everything, you can spend money on tools, and actually they don't make you any better at what you're doing than, in this case, they don't make you any better than what we're doing here. But like with all tools, they tend to save you a lot of time. That's really what you're paying for. So we're doing this the slow, low-tech, inexpensive way. I suppose the reality is if this would have been done with the right tools, with expensive tools in a factory or in a luthier shop rather than the Reloved guitar workshop, the tools you could have to do this would make this maybe 50% quicker. But in truth, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it instantaneous. Like the stage we're about to come to next would be a little faster and easier. I'm not entirely convinced that it would be a better way of doing it for some reasons we'll see in a minute, hopefully. But yeah, the promise is that it's easier to do it with the custom-built tools, and companies like StewMac, which you can find online, their whole business is built up on actually creating a tool for every single step of every process. And of course you can't blame them for doing that, but you don't need to have them. Some things you'll want to have because they make unbearable tasks bearable. Some things you'll want because they just speed up certain tasks which you don't want to spend loads of time on. But I'm a great believer that if you can show somebody that it's low cost and low tech, then it's more likely to inspire them to have a go at doing it themselves. And it's the doing it yourself that's the really exciting bit, because you can transform your own guitar and make it play really well, and you have a skill that you can do that every time, so you're never held hostage to that stupid game of having to spend more and more money to get a guitar that plays the way it pretty much should do. by default. Okay, so I'm on the last one now. Just going to check this one off a little bit more. Again, don't stop even when you think you're almost there. If it's not right, don't stop. Okay, so they're done. Remember what I said? I said don't assume that it's all right. We've done all of them individually, but let's go back over them and check. And forget where we've seen the black marks previously. Let's go over this as if it was a new inspection. Okay, there you go. Throwing up some high fret in the middle of this one that wasn't there before. So we might as well take care of it if we can. There's no point leaving it there to ruin the good work we've done. So I'm going to do that straight away without waiting, without checking any further. I'll take care of this one if I can. So taking those other two down has left this middle one slightly high, which is what you can get when you do this individually. That's suppose the only other downside of doing this in this manual fashion. You can, if you do it with the fret leveling file, you tend not to have this situation where you create follow-on problems because it's doing it all in one go, all reference to everything else. So this can be the only downside of this, and it might be the case that it makes you wish at the end that you'd done it all as one big scraping action with the big fret file, but we'll see. I mean, eventually if we end up doing too many of these extra frets, because it throws up problems everywhere else, then we sort of undone the advantage of doing it on the spot basis that we started off doing this, and it may end up being, we may conclude that it would have been quicker to have done it all in one fell swoop, but you can't know until you do it. Either which way, we'll get there. So you can see this is adding a bit of extra time that I hadn't expected. But it's fair to say that if you do any alterations or changes to the levels on a fret, it's going to have an impact on the relative heights of the ones around it, or the way it interacts with the ones around it, because taking one down makes another one look higher comparatively. Okay, so I'm going to mark that up as needing a redress like all the others. Okay, carry on checking. Okay, change pieces. Okay, now we've got a piece now turning up here, which we will mark and deal with right on the top edge. So, don't know whether I'll be arguing the case of doing it by sandpaper and spot check method in future. It might be a case that since one might argue that since I've paid good money for the fret leveling file, it might make sense to use it all the time. There's probably some truth in that, but it's I guess it's, if you haven't spent, how much did it cost me, 25 quid or whatever, if you haven't spent that money on it, then it'd be good for you to see that you can still do this job using low-tech methods, and that's why I'm demonstrating this way. Okay, so everything's Alright, oh, what have we got here? Very small amount, but still noticeable along this fret here. So we'll just, again, mark it up and have at it, as pirates used to say. Or sailors or somebody. Not a lot, so 3 or 4 swipes and I think that would be gone, which it just about is. A little bit high there still. Just mark that, show that we did a bit more on that one. Being really precise now. Since we started, we might as well. Tiny bit more off that one. Fine. Again, I'll just extend that line a little bit to show I've done a bit more on that fret than intended. Might as well. I'm going to make this perfect. This one now showing up as I'm needing a little bit off all the way across. So again, I'll do this one and then mark down the side. So it's the old-fashioned way, tends to reveal a few problems as it goes, and you have to be prepared to add those into the mix. And what that really means is it takes a little bit longer, and it means that you've got a few more fret dressings to do than you'd originally thought when it's all said and done. So I'm nearly done. Okay, we've got a problem on this one, from there downwards. So we've pretty much ended up, if we had ended up with that much in the first place, if we'd started with that much marked up, I might have considered that a good case for getting the fret leveling file on it, and not necessarily doing it step by step, one by one. But we didn't. Okay, that's done. Okay, we're now done. Right, okay, quickly moving along because it's now taking quite some time. Next stage, we were happy with that. We've got quite a few more marks than we thought we would have, but now next thing you do is go back with your marker pen and over everything you've scraped with sandpaper, go right over the top of it again with a full coating of permanent marker, because the next stage of the process is going to require this permanent marker coverage, so it's crucial that you do it. You can't do the next bit without it. And the next bit is the bit where we re-profile or re-crown, or different ways you could say it. We re-profile each fret that we've scraped, because in scraping the fret we've flattened the top of it, so its profile has been altered from the nice rounded kind of hump shape that the fret naturally would have. So by flattening it, we've reprofiled it, and so what we now need to do is to reprofile it again, reprofile it, and by that I mean do what we can to shape it back into a nice smooth humped fret instead of a piece of metal with a big flat spot on the top. Right? So when you hear people talking about crowning a fret, that's what they mean. They're putting a top or putting the right shape back in onto the fret. Now you can buy inexpensive diamond coated tools to do this from StewMac, and they look pretty nice, and they're about £60 or £70 UK, and I'm not convinced that they're concave files which you can just push over the top of each one of these files, and it will, because of the shape of the file being concave, it will scrape the profile back onto the fret. My feeling is that doing that, actually those files will always take a bit more off the top than where you got to originally by levelling the files. And the key issue here is, if you don't want to run the risk of creating more unevenness, then you don't want to be taking anything off the top of the fret from this point onwards. You've just done a load of work to take a certain few microns of metal off the top of each fret. It seemed to me a bit silly to go and use a tool that will probably take a few more off certain frets and maybe not others, depending on how you handle it. So I prefer the old-fashioned way, which is why to do it we need to remark all of the frets we've worked on. Wherever we've put scratches on it, we remark it up with the masking tape with the permanent marker, like so. Now this is the bit I'm going to start off, and then I will stop the video so you don't have to endure it all, and try and get up a bit closer-ish. So what I do with this is I get a three-sided file with one of the edges being softened off so I can use it down on the masking tape without doing any damage. And I'm going to start either side of the fret, and the idea is with my angled file I'm going to come up to the edge of the fret, and I can feel it biting the metal, and I can see a silvery stripe starting to appear where I'm just taking a bit of metal. And as I come up to it, I will tilt the file over so I can start cutting the edge of the file, the edge of the fret towards the top. But I don't want to go over the top. It's critical in this process that I leave a thin strip of untouched marker on the top of each of these frets. So the game is to use your file along the edge of the fret, take off we're reshaping the edge of the fret, and I'm tipping it over towards the top of the file, so I'm making a kind of smooth hump on the file, but I'm not going across the top, and I'm leaving that. When I've done the edge of the fret, then I jump over to the other side and come backwards in the same way, starting upright and then tipping over a little bit. So I'm now tipping over towards the top of the fret, but again I'm stopping short of the top of the fret because I just want to round off the sides, and I don't want to take any more height off the top of the fret, for the simple reason that we've just done all this hard work to make sure that that little black strip where I've painted with marker pen, that little black strip of marker pen, we know is at the correct height for this fret to be levelled with all the others, because we've done all that painstaking work. So that leaves me a little thin layer on top, probably no more than 1 millimetre, maybe less if we can feel confident with the file, and we just go up the whole neck now, and we just do the same thing to every single fret that we come across that's been got a black marker on it. Of course, the beauty of this is if there's any that haven't, we can leave them and ignore them. We don't need to waste time because they're already, they haven't been worked on in any other way, and they've got the same profile they originally had. Screams next door. So there we go. And it's not that, we're not going to go, it doesn't take that long to do. It's just a matter of getting a close look at it, keeping most of all making sure that you don't skip across the top of the fret while you're doing this, because that runs the risk of scraping off, dear me, scraping off more metal off the top, which is the thing we're trying to avoid. Right, so where we've got only a small amount to do, we try and not to do the whole length of it, because there's no point reshaping parts of the fret that don't need reshaping. So we're just trying to restrict it to the things we've worked on. Of course, you will overrun a little bit when you're doing this. You can't keep it exact, but just this process just reshapes it, and makes the little black strip is the point of contact with the string. Once we've smoothed it all off and sandpapered it, that will be the point of contact of the string, and that's in the right place now at the right height. And that's what we've been working to do, is to level all these frets and re-profile them so that the point that's at the right height is at the top of a smooth rounded fret, so the string will sit in the right place and at the right height, and that will make playing the guitar easier. It will make intonating the guitar easier, and it will mean that you can have a much lower action than you could before. And that's the satisfying bit for me, is when somebody comes to pick up a guitar they've bought via eBay, and they come in person. It's much nicer in some ways, but they come over to us in Devon, and they pick up their guitar, and the first second they grab the neck and fret a chord that they're used to, or maybe 20 years ago when they played, they remember what it felt like on the guitar they had before, that kind of thing. But the really satisfying bit is where they grab hold of that chord, like an F chord or something, and they can tell straight away that this is so much easier to play than anything they ever had before. And that to me is the real payoff for doing this, as well as being able to play nice guitars myself. But to see a customer get such an immediate payoff, knowing that they've bought a guitar that they can really enjoy, is why I'm doing this. So again, this I was going to stop this, but I might as well just carry on. This is the part where, again, you need patience, you need practice. So if you're interested in doing this, I totally recommend that you get yourself a couple of broken guitars if you can find them, or if you know someone who's throwing out a guitar. It could be an acoustic, it doesn't really matter. Preferably an electric, they're easier to play with a truss rod probably. But if you're interested in doing this, get yourself an old neck that nobody wants, or a guitar that's so bad that nobody wants to keep, and do this. Try this out. Get a credit card that you don't need. Cut off the one edge, cut one edge down, so you've got the 3 different lengths sides that you need to do the job. Get some Allen keys, set the relief correctly in the neck, and then off you go. Check for which frets are level, and then take some sandpaper and do what we've just done. And my advice is, if you do this on a guitar you care about, you can't go wrong if you do it carefully. If you want to be reassured or feel a lot more confident, then take your time and do it on a guitar that's going in the skip anyway, that nobody wants. Then you'll not only be able to have some experience of doing it, you'll also know that your experience of we just conked out of power there. That's all right. We're pretty much where we were. Yes, just saying that when you can do this yourself, it's very empowering. You don't need to be held hostage to some professional person to do it for you, and you can make guitars that you have better. And if you are interested, you can make guitars that your friends and family have better, and you'll make a lot of nice friends doing that as well, I can tell you. Okay, so we're near the end of this particular job, the reprofiling part of the job, and as just to reiterate, it's my main concern to round off as much of the fret as I can where we've done grinding work on it, and I'm rounding it off to leave a little thin strip of marker pen, which tells me that we haven't taken any more material off the top of this fret, which then I can be confident that those frets now are pretty much level. It's not totally scientific. I mean, there will be some tiny variations on that, but by and large, more so than your guitar will have been before, you can be confident now, or I can be confident now of this guitar. I can get, just think if you remember that we had I measured an action on this one of 2.5 millimeters at the 21st fret, I think it was. You know, that's the kind of action it was set at, and I don't know anyone who really chooses to set their action high. It usually is because they can't set it any lower, because if they do they get buzz or choked notes. So that was 2.5 millimeters there. I suspect now that when we get through with this and we've polished these frets nicely and it's all ready to put back together again, I'll be interested to see that we could probably take the best part of a millimetre off that and leave a much lower action, if that's what you like. But it's nice to have the option, whereas before we didn't, because of the unevenness of the frets. Okay, so last little bit here and we'll be ready to do the next stages, which are quite sort of straightforward. Again, like all of this stuff, a little time consuming but fairly straightforward. Okay, so I've now reprofiled the frets and left a strip of black along the top of each one. Hard work. You can see it's taken us, I've lost count now, but it's taken us well over the hour. We're easily coming towards an hour and a half. So having done that, we're now on the downhill leg of it, which is nice to be able to announce. And to do that, we're going to do a combination of things. We're going to use some sandpaper, and I've got a few different strengths here. I've kind of had some pre-prepared packs of sandpaper that I made for myself, but now I've kind of used them all up, so I'm going to have to buy and build some more. But they were quite handy, little books of different grades that I could just grab hold of in a hurry. So we're going to go through, start with some fairly, what's the word, harsh grit, some quite rough sandpaper, and we're going to move to progressively thinner and thinner until we stop. And we're going to use a combination of sandpapers and these micro mesh sheets, which are really, really good. And these go up to 12,000 grit. These go, I think, to about 2,000, but they cross over somewhere in the middle. So I'm just going to take out the ones that cross over because there's no point really doing them. So I think it's probably about here. We've got 4 of the papers, followed by the sheets, the micro mesh sheets. So put those in the right order. Experience has told me I've not been using harsh enough sandpaper to do the first bit, and I've been leaving file scratches in. So I'm going to take not the risk, but I'm going to just take out any file scratches with a couple of strokes over with this 320 that we've been using to lower the frets. Okay, so my first thing is I'm just going to run these lightly. I'm not going to put too much pressure on it, up and down all the frets. Now I'm doing all of the frets because I want them all to be finished kind of the same way, have the same finish, degree of smoothness on them. So I need to do them all. And this just now, with my fingers bouncing up and down, they're going over the frets. I'm sort of rounding the tops of the frets off, hopefully just getting rid of any major scratches with this movement, but taking the same sort of amount off all of the frets because I'm doing them all roughly the same. I'm going to stop there because we know that 320 is enough to take a fair bit of material off. And now I'm going to drop down to 600, and I'm going to do that with my fingers as well. So again, running backwards and forwards, sort of even pressure all the way, and making sure I get to every fret, right, the first ones and the last ones. And it's a difficult one to know how long you stay with any of these stages. What you don't want, what obviously we don't want to do here, is take off loads more material and ruin our levels so that we've just totally messed up whatever we set out to do in the first place. But what we also don't want to do is go too quickly to the fine papers, because if we do, we'll be trying to polish substantial scratches made by the files out of these frets with papers that just can't remove them. So it's a kind of matching the strength of the paper to the remaining size of the scratches, if you see what I'm saying. So that was my 600. I'm now going to go to 8. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to use a block, foam block, because I want to put a fair bit of pressure on with this one, and from here onwards I'm going to use them around a pointed block that I've made myself. And I'm going to go up and down quite hard, making sure I get the edges as well as the middle of the fret, and the first one as well as the last one. So remember, I'm on about 800 grit here, still quite scratchy, quite capable of lowering your frets if you're not careful and do one too much longer than the others. Okay, I'm going to now go down to, I think it's about 1,000. Can't remember, can't see the numbers, but I think it's 1,000 this one. And again, same old, up and down. What's nice about doing this is that the polish of this starts to really show up as you get through into the 4000s. It takes about that long. But these micro meshes are so good that you could pretty much polish this almost without using a final Dremel shining stage. So you can see here why the masking tape is such a good idea, because without this you've made an absolute pigsty mess of your fretboard. As it is, it's nicely protected. Now with this 1000, I'm just going to take the liberty of going across the frets for a little bit on each one, not too much and not too much pressure. I'm just going to hopefully take out any last scratches that are lying across the fret as I do this. So a little bit of time, 3 or 4 rubs on each one. Nothing so much on one that it puts it out of shape with the other. It's fairly even treatment all the way across. And if you do that, you can't go too far wrong, because all the frets will be levelling out at the same sort of rate. Of course, the amount of material that's coming off now at this stage in the game is minute. Now we're into polishing kind of territory, so we're on a 1500 grit, very, very fine paper. And again, we can kind of speed up a bit with this in some ways, because we're really into polishing rather than cutting metal away mode now. Of course, it is abrasive and it is taking metal away, but okay, so that's your 1500 and then to 18. While I'm doing this, I'm kind of looking at the nut on this guitar and wondering whether it's a good quality one. What I do know about it is it certainly was sticking when I was using the tremolo before, so this nut might be a good candidate for replacing with one of the tusk nuts that I've got. The only difference is, I guess, is that realistically, the tusk nuts cost me about £7 each, so that does add cost to the guitar. And if we can make the original equipment work the way it should, it's probably better to do that rather than adding cost to the guitar, because I have to pass that on to anyone who's buying it. So my first stage, I think, will be to try and adjust these nuts so that they certainly don't bind the string the way they were doing before. And I think we can certainly go some way to do that. If then there's problems, then I will consider changing it at that point. So now we're on 3,600 grit. And then 4,000, and it's around about now that it starts to really polish the frets up. 4,000 on when you're polishing or sanding lacquer, clear lacquer. 4,000 is the point at which the lacquer starts to look shiny again. It stops being scuffed by the abrasive and starts looking polished. It's so fine. 6,000. And then 8,000, you hear the cows. And then last one in our selection here is 12,000 grit. Now hopefully by this stage in the game we should have some frets that are pretty smooth. I mean, you can check it by taking running a blade across them. Any scratches will show it pretty quickly. And you don't want to gouge the. Be careful not to gouge the fret. But yeah, you can see if you put on if I put on my grandad glasses, I can also see if there are any scars or scratches. And once we've done that, then we are in a good position to give it the final once over with a bit of polishing goo with the Dremel. And for this we need to find ourselves a Dremel polishing head, which I think I might be in danger of. There's one. I don't know where the worn out one is. There it is. So I'll take out, these wear out pretty quickly. Maybe because I might not be using them correctly, but hey, they seem to do the job. So I'm going to take this worn out one out and stick in another one, which I think is newer. This neighbour next door is interesting, shouts all the time, ordering the children around non-stop. I think they're going to rebel when they get older. Right, there we have our Dremel. Now I just want to put the screws away somewhere, the drill away where it doesn't going to get lost. It's the only problem with little fiddly things like Dremels, you're too easy to lose all the bits. Right, power on, good. I also get some cleaning goo, which I've got here, and I'm going to apply this manually. This is liquid polishing compound, and I'm just going to put this on in a few blobs. The Dremel will fire it everywhere. It's a bit of a mucky job. I don't really, there's a clean way of doing this. You don't need a huge amount of this stuff, but it's quite hard to get it onto the frets. So I'm just going to sort of rub some on, and it will spit it off to the side and get it all over me, and that's the price you have to pay. Okay, so but this will be enough to finish the job. And then we have the pleasure of taking off the masking tape and revealing our wonderful new frets. be very careful not to let the collet on your Dremel click or bang against the frets, because that will put a big gouge in it. And there's some neighbours' kids going past. Somebody used to be our neighbour. Thankfully we live in a, touch wood, a really safe neighbourhood. Unlike where I work in the week up in London, we don't have to worry all the time about people breaking into sheds and nicking things. I'd hate to have to live like that. Right, we're nearly there. And towards the last few. Again, you can see how mucky it makes the masking tape. So it's good for polishing the frets, but it will make a mess of the fingerboard if you were not careful. Okay, last three, that's that. So I'm not going to shine them up just yet because we've got one more bit to do, and that bit is the grand unpeeling. Whatever you do, don't be tempted at this point to use a knife, no matter how difficult it is to get these bits of masking tape off, which it is right by the time you've done this. Just use your fingers and be patient. Fingernails if you've got them, but no knives. You're dangerous scratching your neck beyond repair if you do, and you just have to be patient to get to the final finished neck. So you know, it's taken us at least an hour and a half on this job. We did it slightly slower way by using the sandpaper and block method. But we did it thoroughly and we didn't rush it, and even if we'd have done it with the fret leveling file, we wouldn't have got there much quicker. So you can see this is a slow, intensive process, but it's the only way you're going to get level frets on your guitar fingerboard or your guitar neck. And it's the only way you're going to get the level frets you didn't get from the factory, or from the shop, or from the nice guy who bought this guitar off. Because it's impossible, nobody does it. Unless it's you, or in this case me. So, once we get all this tape off, then we get to polish the thing down a bit and see our handiwork and And more importantly, we be careful at this point, by the way, because it's still easy to get your fingerboard dirty, and you don't want to do that. So yeah, this is the moment in which we get to enjoy the fruits of our hard labour, and we know then we're lined up ready to do the next stage, which is working on the body, making sure the electrics are all good, giving the body a good clean up, and then we'll be able to put it all together again and set the neck relief, and following that get into the business of setting the action and intonating the guitar so it's placed properly. And that, folks, with a few bits of goo trapped down the sides which we're going to want to maybe toothbrush away, there we have a beautifully levelled, slightly dirty neck, but we will clean it again. We have a beautifully levelled neck with polished, freshly polished frets. Okay, and that is going to give you a really nice action when you come to replace this on your guitar. And we're going to get lower than the 2.5mm that we had before. As I say, it's a bit grubby now because we've got some of the goo from before on the fingerboard. So just to be correct, I'm just going to whiz by, take that off quickly before any of it gets bedded into the maple, the finish, because we don't want that after all this hard work. We don't want to ruin it by having a grubby fingerboard. But that is really nice. I'm pleased with that outcome. But as you can see, having been here in person, it's not an easy task. It's not complicated, but it's not easy in terms of it's not quick. There's a lot of time and skill and effort that you've got to put into making these frets as good as they are now and as level as they are. And there's no shortcut to this. Okay, so this having had the tape around it and all the goo, this has still got some muck on it that needs taking off, and we might well do that with some Mr. Sheen as well, just to clean it up a little bit more. But in principle, that's a really smooth set of frets, beautifully levelled. Okay, so I'm going to take a break, go and make a cup of tea. Next stage is quickly whisk through the body. I think there's no problems there, so that'll be quick. Then we'll put the two parts together again, clean them all up, and get into the completing part of the deal. Alright, so we've done the hard bit, the rest should be quite fun. Hello, back again later in the day. So here we are, time to have a look at the body on this Squier Stratocaster Standard. And straight away I can see, first thing I notice is a nice heavy body, good solid guitar. Not sure what the wood is. I think it was, I read somewhere that it was called agathis or something like that, some sort of nice hardwood. I also read somewhere that these pickups are Alnico magnet pickups, which are supposed to be very well liked. So they're better than usual Squier quality. That's the word on the street. So I'm just going to get a quick standard dust over with a bit of polish, just have a look and see what we've got. But we'll pull off some of these covers and just have a quick look underneath, make sure everything seems to be working really well. So just going to really have a insurance check just to make sure, see if there's anything at all untoward. I doubt there will be, which is good. So let's start on this side. Here we have this 2-point floating tremolo, but it's not under any pressure right now, so I seem to recall earlier on that it was quite under load. It pulls forward and it's quite usable just without the tremolo arm, which we don't have. I'm not going to take off all the individual bridge saddles here, partly because they seem to be already set on their intonation, seems to be set. So apart from getting a good dusting around them and underneath, get most of the dust off, I'm not going to go too much further with that. Likewise, these volume tone pots are all clean, pretty clean, and they haven't got anything gunk, the usual plastic gunk trapped underneath. Very often what happens is guitars we get have still kind of leftovers, residue of the original plastic sheet that came with the guitar, still trapped under there, and it picks up dirt, and it also makes a crackling noise, like a rustling noise when the knobs are turned, because it's just dried up plastic, sort of polythene plastic stuck under there. So often when that's the case, it's just good to pull the knobs off and remove that plastic, sometimes just carefully with a sharp blade. But overall this is in nice condition, this Strat. The body is not as shiny maybe as it was when it was new, but it's pretty good. There's only one or two minor marks that we've taken the old touch-up pop to, but beyond that it's a nice piece of kit. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick have a look under the hood, as we say. Make sure I get a decent drill bit to take this stuff out with. And just really for curiosity's sake as much as anything else, because I'm nosy and I just want to have a look and see what we've got. But it's very nice to get a guitar in this kind of condition. They're not always this good. Although I'd say I have had a few just recently. I've been a bit more careful because one of the ones that I got recently, which is currently, the body's hanging over here, which was a horrible Encore, and it was in pretty nasty condition when we got it, and I got it from a trader on eBay who is a house clearance guy, and you know, there's no offence to him, it's not his fault, but it wasn't in any way the kind of condition that it would be in if you got it from a private seller, probably. So it was probably the worst condition guitar that I've bought on eBay, and as a result of a few things that I did carelessly with it, probably just written it off. It's not going to be one that really goes anywhere, but that's okay because it wasn't very good nick. So with the pickguard screws taken out, let's have a look what we've got. Oh yeah, we've got a big cavity, very neat. Everything's tidy in there. Give you a quick look. So we've got well wired, tidily wired up, 3 single coils, nice switch, very well wired together. It's not had any amateur wiring, i.e. me, going on behind there. So I'm just going to take out some of this, or wipe away some of this extra dust under the pickguard. Not that anyone sees it or it makes any difference at all, but it's kind of obsessive compulsive in me. Yeah, so you can see this is been routed for I guess 3, could even take 3 humbuckers. So it's a lot of pickup possibilities with this basic body, and I think also it's quite interesting because when you do that with a guitar, you also take away quite a lot of the wood, which then means that your guitar is a lot lighter than it would be if it had just the routing for 3 single coil pickups. But anyway, we'll put that right back on there. Happy to say it's all in order under there. all the wiring looked good, and we know that from playing it anyway. It's in order. So I'm just going to lightly fire in the screws to get it back together again. Conscious of power drivers, when you're doing light small screws like this, you want to be very careful. You can do it, just be conscious of what you're doing. Don't let the drill run over the electric screwdriver run away from you, otherwise you'll strip threads and make a mess. So this is a nice straightforward part of the job after having taken a long time, as you saw, if you sat through it, a long time to do the fret leveling and the neck sorting, but that's fine by me, because now we can very shortly go straight into putting it back together again, rejoining neck and body, and then on into the neck truss rod adjustment, after which we'll do the setting the action, and then finally the intonation, and we'll be ready to wait for the sun to come out, take some nice pictures, and either put this little baby up on eBay for sale, or maybe if I get too attached to it, maybe just give up and keep it, because it is a quality guitar, this one. We've got a good piece. For a moment I wasn't quite sure that we were going to get it, because it was all the way out in Great Missenden, out in the country somewhere, and I had to take a train from London, which is what I quite often do to get these guitars. But the seller hadn't informed his parents that I was coming to pick it up, so for all I know they might have been out, in which case I would have been furious. But all went well and ended happily in the end. Yeah, for a guitar that carries the name Standard, it's a sort of misnomer, because as far as Squiers goes, this feels anything but standard, really. It is definitely a cut above the rest that we've had through here. You know, like I say, such that it's nice to play, and I can't wait to see what it's like to play when we've set a new action and intonated it. But yeah, I don't know if you can see on here, but that's a nice, really nice condition lacquer on there, very rich, nice sparkly metallic finish. Okay, so what we've got here is a tremolo, as we saw before when we had the strings on, a tremolo with some life in it. And I guess the thing we do, if we want to lock the tremolo down, what we would do is screw in these two screws right to their stops, which will put the springs under full tension, and against that the strings then don't have a chance to move it forward. So unless you could still put a tremolo arm in there and put some serious welly on it to make it do something, but in normal playing that would lock it. Now I quite liked being able to we are ready. Right, let's get on with it. Bit of a ran out of storage space there. Okay, so all looks good in there. I'm going to whiz it back together again. I'm going to leave the tremolo with that free movement in it that we played on earlier on, because it's quite nice to be able to do a bit of string bending with your hands. So if it doesn't work, or if it pulls the strings out of tune, then what I'll do is go back in the back here and lock it down, put the strings under full pressure. But we'll see how it gets on to begin with. Right, so here comes the good fun part. This is where we're going to put the neck back on. So this is all in such nice condition. We want to do it upside down, I think, this way. Get it into its slot. We'll do it upside down so I can obviously put pressure on it from this side. Stay there for a minute. Put this out of the way. Right. Clonk. Got our 4 neck bolts here. And again, with this, we'll go in a bit at a time. We won't screw any one of them in all the way to begin with. Just before I start putting major pressure on it, I'm just going to go round this side, and there should be some bite there already, but I just want to make sure everything looks okay, and I don't want to kind of drive it all the way home if there's something wrong. And this is where your plate will need to line up properly. I think that's nicely secure for the time being. Don't need any more tension than that. So there we have our standard, or Squier Stratocaster Standard, back together again, all deliciously clean. I really like, by the way, the quality of these pieces here. The bridge saddles, they're far higher quality than any of the other Squiers that we've worked on. I'm not quite sure what they're made of, but whatever it is, it's a much better material. I'm just going to give them an extra bit of polish to get rid of some of the little bits of build up on them, but they really are nice machined, have a nice precise machined feel to them, which is nice, very nice. Okay, yeah, it just adds to the quality feel of this guitar. So we've got 2 string trees, we might as well put those back on now. And they, if we remember back hours ago, the tall one goes at the front and the not so tall one goes a little further back. Quite long, these screws, actually, surprisingly long. I crossed them over the wrong way around. I'll find out any second now. That feels about right. Line them up. One of the things that I noticed before is that there was some pinging when the tremolo was being used, and that could have been because they were catching, the strings were catching on the string trees, or it could have been the problem with the nut that I suspect it's also the case on this guitar. But we have some little nut file tools here that we can use to sort that out. Okay, so let's just recheck. We've leveled the frets, we've polished the frets, we've checked the body over, we've given it a bit of a shine up. It's looking really nice, actually. now it's time to put the strings on, and when we put the strings on, we'll put the neck under load, and then we will adjust the truss rod, which I've probably put away somewhere again. No, I'll put it in here. We'll adjust the truss rod so that with the neck under load, we'll put it the kind of relief that we want. Now, either I'm going mad, or my set of 3 strings this morning seems to have only turned into 2 packets of strings. That would be, I would call that a mighty rip-off. Can't believe that's the case. I must have lost my head. Why would I have moved another set somewhere else? I wouldn't have done, would I? I would have taken them out, put them somewhere there, ready to go, and I've only got 2. This is not seriously possible. Let me just look at the wrapping for a minute. What's going on here? Something's gone a bit wrong. I'm going to put this on hold a minute. I'll talk about annoying. I thought I'd gone mad, but my 3-pack of Ernie Ball strings actually only has 2 packs in it, and I of course immediately doubted myself, deciding that I've gone mad and lost a pack somewhere, which isn't the case. It only had 2 in it. I haven't gone anywhere else other than here. I opened it in here, and there's no 3rd set. So my 3-set pack is anything but 3. That's really annoying. That's a rip-off. So I'm going to have to get back to these people. But I need to use them right now, so I'm going to have to use some of them. That's just insane. Oh well, it's kind of dampened my spirits a little bit, I'm afraid to say. I really don't want to be arsing about raising complaints or something. Anyway, I just have to deal with that. Now these are regular tuners, so my secret to that is to pull a bit of slack and then cut off quite a bit of leftover. And just go for it with the string winder. I don't want to overfill the peg. I think I'm going to be doing a bit of backwards and forwards with these strings in order to adjust the nut slots here, so I'm not going to tighten them up too hard at the moment. So I can't quite get that out of my head. I've been ripped off to the tune of 1 pack of strings. Boo, not good. So with everything nicely set on this, with the clean fretboard, new strings, we'll get the action right and everything right. I think this is going to be a superb guitar, and I suspect that I'm going to find myself very reluctant to sell it. I reckon that set of strings just gone. It's not possible. They weren't there, Sam. Don't distrust yourself so. That's true. I should not. I think there are more advanced kinds of string winders that you can get. Like little screwdrivery, electric screwdrivery type ones, but I've never graduated up to one of those from where I currently am with my good old-fashioned $1.99 or whatever, $2.99 plastic ones. They're perfectly effective, but you can, if you're not careful, there is a small risk that you can damage the the lacquer on your headstock with a string winder if you're not careful. Because you're whizzing around so fast, you can, without realising it, grind the top of the winder against the headstock. Because the winder has a deeper skirt, shall we say, which is probably a design fault, but it allows the winder plastic to hit the headstock, which you really don't want. Bit heavy. Right, 2 strings away of my 2-pack set. Rip off. Yeah, the local children having a wonderful Friday evening time. Right, not far off now. So all of this hard work we've done will be rewarded with a nice low action, nice guitar to play, nice clean fingerboard, real pleasure to play, and one that is nicely intonated as well. When we get round to that in a minute. Again, the issue of about intonation is it's not a great mystery. It's one of those things you can do yourself. You just have to understand the things you need to do leading up to it, which is what we've just spent time doing. All this preparation work to get the neck, the frets levelled, the neck sorted, and so you can have the action set the way you want. And once you've got all that done, you can do the intonation, which when we get down to it is quite simple in a way. You just need a good tuner app, either a pedal or an app for your iPhone. It's got to be I think it's called a chromatic or oscilloscope type tuner app. Okay, just take off the extra bits for a minute. We might cut them shorter again afterwards, once we've got where we're going. So, put a bit of load on them. Well, that's interesting. I'm thinking about another guitar. I must be thinking about another guitar. This is the one I've been playing. Oh, I can't. I'm losing my mind. Middle age, you see. Okay, as you know, strings will always have loads of stretch in them, and don't forget at the moment we've got a straight neck. The truss rod is adjusted so the neck is straight, which we may want to do an adjustment to. Right, without doing any adjustments, that's quite nice. Obviously the neck is flatter than it was, just slightly. Being under strain by the strings, it will have put some bend into it. Blimey, that's nice already. Okay, so looking at the neck, we have a little bit now of relief in the neck as a result of the strings being under load, but not an awful lot. However, we don't necessarily need any more if it plays well. Let's just plug it in and see what it really sounds and feels like. For that, I suppose I would need I'm conscious. What happened to our floating thing? That's really interesting. I don't do anything to the tremolo on here and it's now locked itself back, which is fine. That's actually how I want it to be, but that's left me somewhat confused. Such that I need to learn something. Strings are uneven, set unevenly down here. We'll need to do something about that. have another look at things. I'm confused completely, as you can tell. I've been wrong-footed by the loss of my strings, but I've been confused by what's happened to this bridge. Since we took the strings off, it's flopped back, and it's now in its locked down position. And I don't know whether, maybe I need to read up on this or something, but I mean, that's where I want it, but it's not where it was before. So there's something going on here that I don't understand, but hey, that's hardly surprising. So I'm going to just have another look at this and see, is this enough relief? And there is a way of doing it. In fact, the relief is slightly uneven on this neck. There's a bit of curve down this side, and it's less curve down the right hand side. You want some relief in there so that the strings can vibrate and oscillate. And if we look at it, there is a measurement. If you have your feeler gauges out, there should be some gap when you fret the first fret, and the last. That's about right on this side. I'm not sure it's the same on this side because of it's a bit less because of it's a little straighter on this side. I'm going to live with that because it sounds okay so far. What I'm going to do next is to take care of the action down this end. And one of the things I can tell is by looking across the level of the surface of the strings, I can see that some are automatic or straight away lower and higher than the others. Quite a bit different. So in fact, it's quite easy if you look down the guitar at it this way. So I can see that for example, the D string is really, really high. Now this may be a personal preference for the player who had this before, but I'm going to visually balance them up and see what we get, because it may not be my personal preference to have that string that high compared to everything else. So I'm sort of doing it, eyeballing it really more than anything. The action's now quite low, and if I now bring down this A string to tally, or to equivalent, you're aiming for a profile across the strings which sort of matches the radius of the neck, and there are tools you can buy that will do that to help you do it. Little profile gauges, radius gauges I think they're called, but I'm doing it by eye, and it's, I can see it's a gradual curve across the strings here. A lot of this I do by eye anyway, because it's possible to do that. Now what we've got following that is the strings now look a lot more level. I'm going to just check and see that, of course it will go out of tune because you're changing the tension on it, but let's see if it plays okay. What an action! That is delightful. Oh, I don't want to give this away. I don't want to sell it even. Well, we're getting there. And I haven't done the intonation yet. Now, having changed the gauge of the strings, or put new strings on, which I know the gauge of, which is 9 down to 42, what I'm not getting is the tinging sound. It doesn't feel to be sticking in the nut, so I'm not going to do anything to that. Also, the height of the nut, the height of the slots means One of the biggest areas for messing up intonation is when the slot height here is too shallow, meaning you have to press too far down to get your strings to touch the first few frets. If that's the case, it forces the string to go sharp, which means even if you tune the strings perfectly open, what happens is when you press to fret a chord, whatever it is, the pressure on the strings to get them to touch the frets is so great that they go a tiny bit sharp, and it makes the whole chord sound really muddy, because basically the three notes in a D, for example, that you're pressing down are all sharp by the same amount, so together they might sound in tune with each other, but compared to the open strings they're now sharp and therefore out of tune, and the mess, the audio mess that results is horrible. This is still strings bedding in, so that's not a problem yet. You can tell it, by the way, by getting a tuner out and tuning your open string to a perfect E, for example, and then fretting the F. And if you see it's sharp on your tuner, you know that either you could be gripping too hard, but you could also be that you're gripping too hard because you're having to press too far down to fret the note. I could, judging by this, I think I could take a tiny bit out of that still. There's room to drop a bit, but I don't really feel, unless I get problems with intonation, I don't really want to do that, because it's not sounding too bad at all. I'm just going to keep tuning it. Relative tuning anyway. Good, I'm really pleased with that. Now we're going to do the intonation bit, which is the last bit in our process. And to do that, well, let's see, I'm going to put this somewhere where you can see it. Last video I did, it wasn't possible to see it, so I'm going to bring the amp up here, make a little bit of space, and I'm going to get my iPhone app tuner. It's on, what do you call it, airplane mode, so we don't mess up the recording. And I'm going to set on the tuner. I'm going to put the amp on, give myself a clean sound. Okay, we don't want any reverb or any effects. So there's my tuner. You can see how it works. Okay, and I'll put it here so you can see it clearly. So that's E, and it's clearly sharp. So I can tune it properly. Okay, I am hearing a ping of the nut slot. So I don't want that to do that. It will mess up tuning, and if we bend strings and it gets caught in that slot there, we'll have trouble. So what I am going to do is I'm going to halt this particular operation for a minute. And I'm just going to concentrate on just creating a bit more space in that in those slots. This is going to put a bit more time onto this, but it's better we do it to make this play smoothly. Okay, so I'm going to start with my finest. These got little cutting edges on them. They're very fine. Now that means I'm going to slack this off, bend the string out of the way. I'm going to get my zoom-in glasses, and I'm going to, in this case, I'm just going to do a very small incision, Doctor. Hello, it's Claire. I'm going to do a very small incision in here, and the purpose of this is just to create a bit more space in this slot. I don't really want to dig down any further, although we ascertained we did have a bit of leeway for that. And then I'm just going to drop that string back into there, and also while I'm there I'm going to make sure the string tree is pointing exactly in the right direction. This sounds fantastic, this guitar. Like I'm surprised, but now what I want to hear is it not catching. Okay, that's good. In which case I might not do all the others. So we're back to getting in tune. This is in the final intonation stage of the game. Back up. Zoom out. It's got a lovely action. Okay, so here we go. Once again, back to the intonation game. So we've got to get this to an E. Okay, so the intonation game now is, to explain it very simply, the frets on this guitar are spaced in a way that are perfectly calculated mathematically for a guitar string length. That's the length between the nut and the bridge of a precise length, and so the manufacturer makes the guitar neck that way to a note, to a formula for a certain scale length guitar. We get that neck, or the factory puts that neck onto a body, and then you put the strings on with a bridge, and all of those things could be slightly millimetres out of position, so that you need to just make tiny adjustments to your string when everything's in place to make sure that your actual string length between that point where it leaves the nut and the point where it goes over the bridge saddle is in fact the exact length you need for this neck that's already been manufactured with those frets that have already been put in that order according to that formula. That's why on these guitars you have 6 individual saddles, because they all need to be adjusted one after another, and the string thickness makes the length for each one need to be slightly different. And what you tend to get, because of the thickness, is on the unwound strings you get the E string is a tiny bit shorter overall length, B's a bit longer, you can see them going back, the G's a bit longer. And then when you come to the wound strings, it jumps forward again, and the wound D needs to be about the same length as the unwound E, and drops back for the other 2 strings. So that looks like it's been done, but we'll just go and check so you can see the effect of it. So the first thing we do to see if it's intonated correctly and to set it is to tune the guitar when you ping the 12th fret harmonic. Tune it to an E in this case, on the E string. If the length of this string is exactly right for this neck, then what you'll find is when you fret the E at the 12th fret, it'll be exactly the same according to the tuner as the pinged harmonic at the 12th fret. And it is pretty spot on. Slightly flat actually, a tiny bit. And if we were going to adjust that, since we're here doing it properly, if the string is flat, it means if the note is flat, it means the string is a tiny bit too long. And what you then need to do, if I can pull this up, is you need to shorten the string. And you shorten the string by making an adjustment to the bridge saddle here and pulling the bridge saddle towards the nut. That shortens the overall length of the string. And you can do it with either a Phillips head screwdriver or a slotted screwdriver, and if you're going to do it, make sure you get a good look at it, because it's all too easy to mess up the heads on the screwdriver and or damage your enamel. Your lacquer. So anti-clockwise turns will bring the saddle towards the nut, and it will shorten the length of the string. It will also slacken the string off so that the open string will go down in tone now. We're going to retune it. That's good enough for me. We made a tiny adjustment on that one. I'm going to move to the B string and tune that. Notice that I'm tuning to the harmonic. Again, slightly flat. That means the string's too long. That means we've got to come closer to the nut with the bridge. So I'm going anti-clockwise, counterclockwise. As you make that adjustment, the string will go slacker because you're taking the pressure off it, so you need to retune. A little bit more. You can see that this is a best of several kind of process. It's not exact science. Although people would tell you actually it is an exact science because it's physics. But hey. Okay. That'll do. Again, quite a bit flat, so too long means we'll go counterclockwise, come towards the nut with the bridge saddle. And we'll do a few turns on this because we know it's a bit flat. Feel a little bit, again, a few more tweaks counterclockwise.
Oh, sick!
Cat fights. Okay, nearly there. Flat. So we're finding that whatever we've done to this guitar has made the original intonation, everything's gone a little bit out of kilter from where it was before. And I think I'm in danger of running out of adjustment space on this particular, that's interesting. I am just about out of adjustment on this bridge saddle. Well, it's not absolutely perfect, but oh, hang on, I've given it a push. That'll make a difference. Perfect, job done. Again, you see flat, so a couple turns. Judging by the positioning of this, it's quite a few turns to the anti-clockwise, but we're nearly there. It's all looking the way it should. It's all hanging together quite well. What I'm learning is that you need to push these things through. Once you've made the adjustment, push them through, because they won't necessarily spring into place, even though they're under spring loading. Still a tiny bit. So anti-clockwise and push. Close enough. Again, a bit on the flat side, so we'll push that saddle closer to the nut. Pretty much spot on. Okay, so that's the intonation done. We've got it right. We just now need to tune this guitar. I'll give it a couple more tugs. Remembering the strings are on, they're very fresh, so it won't stay in tune instantly, but okay. And now I'm going to do one last thing, which is to take a picture of, not that, I'm going to take a picture of the action on this guitar for posterity, because we'll have changed it. Let's have a look. We're on the millimetre side of things. Keep in focus and stay in focus. Hard to do this with one hand. Millimetres, here we have millimetres. Can we see? Is there any light? Funny, there's no gap at all. Very difficult to see, not the best light, but zooming out. Wow, I don't even know what that comes in at under. I think 2.5. I think that's I think we're down to 1.5 millimetres. So I think we've taken 1 millimetre off that action today in this operation. And there are adjustments we can make. If we're not happy with it, we can go round cycle again. We can add some more relief into the neck. If we're not comfortable with the way it plays, we'll try it out for a bit. And we can change the action around as much as we like. But right now, that's intonated nicely for the action the way it is. So, feels like a long day. It's a good 3 hours hard work to get this done. So you can do it yourself. It just takes time, patience, and a little bit of knowledge, and the desire to make the guitar that you've got, whether it's a budget one, a mid-price one, or a really expensive one, the desire to make the guitar that you've got play as well as it can possibly play. And this is where we're getting close with this one. Really nice. Look forward to playing this tomorrow sometime. So, this is Sam signing off from Reloved Guitars. If you've stuck it out through the whole of this process, hopefully you've learned a little bit more about what you can do with your guitar. It's been a pleasure spending 3 hours with you. Signing off. Time to go and get something to eat.